Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. A very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. And welcome to Saturday's very special edition of the DCEU Daily. Happy birthday, Batman. I absolutely love you. 80 years old and you don't look a day over 30. 80 years of Batman. Of course, I'm 46 years old, so I haven't been around for the whole of the 80 years, but I do speak to a lot of people who have been around on this mortal coil for quite a few years more than me, just giving me so many beautiful memories. People who tell me they remember the premiere of the 1960s Batman movie and how special that was. And do you know what? I remember watching that movie. I do. And amazing. That was my first experience of Batman. And I recorded it on VHS. And a very funny thing was, I never actually caught the start of that film. I only caught the bit when the thing falls off the helicopter and then they're at the press conference with Miss Kit Carr and all that. So that was my first experience of Batman. And a lot of people will call that movie and that series that resulted from that movie silly, campy. But you know what? It wasn't as silly and as campy as people make out. In fact, I loved Adam West's portrayal as Bruce Wayne and Batman. I remember there's a moment in the Batcave where he tells Robin about how his parents were killed and how that inspired him to fight crime. And even though that wasn't a visual medium of seeing it, like we've seen in Burton's Batman, we've seen at the beginning of BVS, and the way it's done in Batman Begins as well. There'll be a lot more conversation about Batman Begins and many Batman live media, because it's Batman Day, and this is what today's DCEU Daily is going to be about. We will finish off with talk about Joaquin Phoenix's Joker movie, an interview that resulted on him walking out on an interview with the Daily Telegraph, and I'll read that because that's Screen Rant talking about that, and we'll finish off with that. So for me, Adam West was my first Batman, and he was a very good Batman. Despite the accusations of campiness and fun, and it was great, and it was great for kids. It was made for kids. That show worked for me, and Burt Wood as Robin was great as well. And even though it was made at a time where depth and fleshing out of characters wasn't the thing, Adam West and Burt Wood's character dynamic has to be one of the best on-screen character dynamics I've ever seen. And Adam West did a really great job with a really young, inexperienced actor. I mean, it was amazing. It really was. And you know what? I loved that movie. And that was my first introduction to Batman. So it wasn't the graphic novels. It was that. And that's all I had for many years. And then in comes, and I think this is right. I think my mathematics are right. Then what year was the first Batman film, Tim Burton's Batman film? 1989. You think today's superhero movies are hyped up. There is not a more hyped up Batman movie than Burton's 89 Batman movie. I thought we were going to see the most amazing thing ever. They hyped up the Prince music, everything. Kim Basinger, as you Americans call her. We call her Basinger, though, but you could call her what you want, if it's a politely termed thing. One of the most beautiful, most talented actors of the time. And that was a great piece of casting. Look, Burton's casting in the first Batman film was amazing. It was pretty much perfection. But getting in Jack Nicholson was one of the most amazing things I've seen since they cast Marlon Brando as Jor-El, aka Superman's biological father, in Superman the movie. It was that big. Nicholson was a big star. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, The Shining, you name it. Every performance. The man is an amazing method actor. And apparently I think he's got Alzheimer's or something now, which is very sad. A great actor. To get him to play the Joker, I mean, at that time, you could have got De Niro, you could have got Pacino, and I'm sure they were approached and they probably said no. And if you're an actor of that standing, you would say no. But Nicholson took the money. Obviously, Nicholson did it for the money. It's obvious, isn't it? It was a lot of money. But his performance as the Joker was absolutely fabulous. A lot of people talk to me about Heath Ledger and say, well, Heath Ledger is better than Nicholson's Joker. No. Ledger's Joker is amazing, but so is Nicholson's. Nicholson's is just different to Ledger's. It's the comic book. He brings to life the graphic novel Joker. He really does. And it's brilliant. He's absolutely nuts. And you can see the different clarification of when he's Jack Napier and then when he falls in the vat of acid, right? And he becomes the Joker. He becomes fucking nuts. You can't reason with the geezer. He is brilliant what he does to Jerry Hall's character Felicia as well. You know, he is just really, really. It's an amazing performance. But none of us are expected anything less from Jack Nicholson. He is one of the masters, one of the icons, one of the legends of the big silver screen. There's no question about that. And Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne and Batman was brilliant. The voice was great under the mask. He kind of disguised it, but it wasn't like what Bale was doing. With Bale, he really did kind of change it and growl it. And Ben Affleck had a voice changer, if you like, which I kind of preferred, but I didn't have an issue with Christian Bale's Batman changing his voice. But Michael Keaton just changed the timbre of his voice and how he sounded, and it was really good. I'm Batman. Brilliant. He kind of started all that, didn't he? So Tim Burton, what's amazing about both Burton's Batman movies, Batman and Batman Returns, and I love them both. I prefer Batman Returns. A lot of people do not like Batman Returns. I adore Batman Returns. I think we've got the trailer just behind me here. I think Pfeiffer is excellent as Catwoman. There's elements of how she becomes Catwoman that are fucking insane with the cats licking her and stuff. But she's insane anyway, right? The character she's playing, Selena Kyle, is already nuts. Now, she is the best live-action Selena Kyle I have ever seen. Because what Burton is able to do in this film is show us the twisted love affair between Selena Kyle and Bruce Wayne, and the other dynamic between Bruce Wayne and Catwoman. No one's ever done that before. You know, I saw an animated film recently, and I forgot what it's called. Anyway, right, it's one of the big animated movies. And they kind of were showing us the relationship between Catwoman and Catwoman. I didn't like her, and I didn't like Selena Kyle. She was too calm. She was too collected. The nice thief. I don't like the nice thief. I like what she is in here. She's not really a thief in this film, Selena Kyle. She's a personal assistant to Max Schreck, played by the fabulous Christopher Walken. Again, like Nicholson, getting someone as amazing as Walken to play a villain in a Batman movie was another great achievement from Tim Burton. But she's not the thief. She's never a thief in this. And some people probably say that's not right. She should be a thief. But it doesn't really matter. This is a great live-action Catwoman. This is brilliant. And I mean, they didn't want Pfeiffer at first. They went for, I think, was it Annette Bening? And she turned it down, or scheduling stopped her from doing it, or was it creative differences? Who knows? Who cares? We got Michelle Pfeiffer. Michelle Pfeiffer is the best live-action Catwoman. We don't have to talk about Halle Berry, do we? Halle Berry was stitched up with that role. It wasn't her fault whatsoever. But anyway, Michelle Pfeiffer is amazing in Batman Returns. She's definitely, I think that's the way you do a live-action Catwoman. That's my personal opinion, because if it's just about the love and that she's a happy, nice thief, I don't like that. But this was brilliant. This was a brilliant way to show the sexual chemistry between Bruce and Selena, and that twisted dynamic between Batman and Catwoman, and that really worked for me. So actually, Batman Returns is one of my favourite Batman films. I do prefer it to Batman 89, actually, and a lot of you will say, how can you say that? I love Batman 89. I think Batman 89 is amazing. It's playing right now on a trailer, but what Burton did with Batman 89, he set the premise to what Batman would look like forever. When you look at Bale's Batman, there's similarities to the way Nolan shot his Dark Knight trilogy is not that different. I mean, his shooting styles are different and the way things look are different. But the way Batman looks isn't that different to what Keaton's Batman looks like. To the way that Burton designed Batman to look like. So that look, and even when you look at Batfleck, that look is kind of inspired by the original look. Very dark. Batman in Burton's films was dark, and that darkness of that character, the so-called Dark Knight, really stuck with other directors. And it's a bit like Donner's Superman. It inspired so many filmmakers and what to do. So Batman 89 is a pioneering movie. I love Batman Returns. As I say, people call it overcrowded. I don't. I thoroughly enjoyed that film. So then you've got Batman Forever. Now, Batman Forever it's an interesting film, isn't it? I actually enjoyed it at the time. I mean, when I watch it now, I have a good laugh. Look, Kilmer was an interesting piece of casting, Val Kilmer. I think he did a really good job as Bruce Wayne, and he was a good enough, solid enough Batman. It's a shame he just didn't come back for the second movie. Maybe he could have demanded a better job from Batman and Robin. Listen, there's been so much chatter, and even the director has said he regrets what he did with Batman. He's apologised to fans. He made it campy. He was inspired by the 1960s TV show, wasn't he? And I think that's why he made it like that. And Warner Brothers decided they wanted to sell Batman toys. And the way that Burton had made them so dark, it was really difficult for kids to be inspired by the way Burton made his Batman. But adults loved Burton's Batman. And I think Warner Brothers just felt they weren't selling the merch and they needed to get kids inspired to buy the merch. So this is why Joel Schumacher came in, right? Joel Schumacher is a great director. He's the one who directed Phone Booth, which is one of my favourite films. I really love Phone Booth. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. So he's a really, really good director. His idea of Batman was he tried to recreate the 1960s series, and although I enjoy both those films, let's be clear here. I enjoy Batman Forever. I think that Jim Carrey is an amazing Riddler. I really do. I think he's absolutely nuts as the Riddler. He works as the Riddler. Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. Tommy Lee Jones back then was offered everything after The Fugitive and took it. He just took the money. He forgot about his creative intent and was just making films for the money after that. That's why he did U.S. Marshals, which was a sequel to The Fugitive. Should he have taken that role? Should he have been Two-Face? The problem is there was no fleshing out of that character. He was there. He was nuts. He was kind of the comic book Two-Face, and Jones did his best with it, and it works. It's convincing. He's a lunatic with two faces. He throws the coin up and he decides his fate through the coin. So it's not like they took any liberties with the origin of Two-Face. I think some fleshing out. At least Jim Carrey's Riddler had a bit of fleshing out. We saw, we knew him as Enigma, and I think Harvey is such an interesting character. And if you fleshed him out, especially with an actor as talented as Tommy Lee Jones, and we knew him before he becomes Two-Face, and I know we see him as another actor in Batman 89, and I don't know why they changed. Well, they changed the actors because Tommy Lee Jones is Tommy Lee Jones, isn't it? So that was my problem with Two-Face. But again, he was kind of enjoyable. So I think Batman Forever is a really fun comic book movie. Nicole Kidman, a fine actor who was used really because she's very sexy and attractive. Unfortunately, back then that happened. It doesn't happen so much now, obviously, because there'll be a lot of fuss made if you're just using someone because they're beautiful and sexy. It's not right, is it? Anyway, so she was wasted on that film. But for me, the film does what it wants to do, and it's a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it. Now, I remember when I first went to see Batman and Robin with a friend, and I remember after we left the cinema, we kind of thought it was an okay, exciting, fun movie, but everyone hated it. But I remember the opening sequence to that film, when Batman and Robin go after Mr. Freeze, and I thought that was awesome. Because what I loved about Joel Schumacher, he always started his Batman movies with an action sequence. And that always used to pull me into the movie. So although Batman Forever and Batman and Robin are not the greatest Batman pieces of fiction ever made, I do think they're very enjoyable. In fact, they're very MCU, aren't they? They're very campy, they're very bright. Not everyone's cup of tea, not what people want to see from Batman, maybe. But I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to be an echo chamber here on my channel. I enjoyed initially watching those films, and I always go back and have a little smile on my face. But the problem is, after Batman and Robin, I was tired of Batman movies. And I remember, and I can't remember when Batman and Robin was done. Was it 90? I can't remember. Was it 94, 90? Anyway, or 98? I don't know. But Batman Begins was released in 2005 because I remember the following year was Superman Returns, which was a big year for any Superman fan, whatever you think of that movie. So anyway, I remember when they were marketing Batman Begins, and I just thought, I can't be bothered. Is this actually a continuation of what they were doing before? And I remember watching the royal premiere on my TV one Saturday, and they were interviewing them and showing clips, and I thought, actually, this looks really, really interesting. Now, I'm going to tell you straight that Batman Begins is my favourite Batman film of all time. I prefer it to The Dark Knight. Listen, now, you're talking about BVS, Batman v Superman. I can't start judging that as a pure Batman film because it's equally as about Superman as it is about Batman. Now, Batman's representation in that film is fucking amazing, but it's not a pure Batman movie. So, even though I love that film, it's difficult for me to say, oh, I put this film above a solo Batman movie. I just can't do that. I have to be honest with myself and with you lot. So Batman Begins is my favourite film. I do prefer it to The Dark Knight. Without Batman Begins, there is no Dark Knight. There is no Heath Ledger. Batman Begins is my favourite film because for the first time in live action, we see Bruce Wayne fleshed out. We see, thanks to Christian Bale and Christopher Nolan, his soul spill out. We know how it feels to be Bruce Wayne finally. It's not easy being Bruce Wayne. He's travelled the world. He's trying to know what it's like to be a criminal. He's lived with them. He's survived with them. Then he comes back and his company's literally, his parents' legacy has been taken over basically. It's still it's still his, but it's been sold, this guy, right? He's trying to just sell it, make it a public company. But on the other hand, looking at this film, it is amazing. Bale just really brings to life the character of Bruce Wayne and Batman. But for an hour, you don't see Batman. And you see how Bruce Wayne becomes Batman. And it's very emotional. And the music really lends to that powerful performance and that powerful narrative. So we have this brilliant fleshing out of Batman and Bruce Wayne. So by the time he becomes Batman, you get it. And it's amazing. And I love the Tumblr. I love the Tumblr. It's not the iconic Batmobile, but I think the Tumblr might actually be more awesome than the Batmobile. But that's a controversial thing to say because when you see Snyder's Batmobile, how fucking awesome is that? And this is what I'm here to talk about. My love for Batman, which is mostly live action. I've only read one graphic novel, and that's The Dark Knight Returns. And so that has to be my favourite graphic novel. That's an amazing graphic novel where you see that Bruce Wayne is really old. He's out of the game, but he decides to come back into the game. And that's a great story to tell, and it's a very unique story to tell. So that's my favourite graphic novel because that's really the only one I've ever read. But in terms of films, yes, Batman Begins is such a special film. And his emotional chemistry with Michael Caine's Alfred is perfect. Getting Caine, and it really works. Caine is a really empathetic, sympathetic Alfred. Now, he's not the kind of Alfred where you can say, yeah, I can imagine him being a soldier. Because Michael Caine, I don't know how old he was then, but I'd say at least in his 70s. Maybe a bit younger, maybe in his late 60s, whatever he was. Hard to imagine him as a brute force soldier. And, I mean, even Jeremy Irons' Alfred is a bit hard to kind of imagine that once upon a time he was a soldier. But you can certainly, with Jeremy Irons and Michael Caine, one thing's for sure, you can see that intellect. Alfred's a very intellectual, smart guy. And there's no better guy to teach someone how to be a hero. So I love those parts. I think the part of Alfred is always got to be carefully cast. And is it Michael Gough who played him in the Burton franchise as well? Another great actor, by the way, who was brilliant in the role. Very empathetic. And that's what Alfred's role should always be. But Batman Begins had great villains. The twist that Neeson was Ra's al Ghul was one of the biggest. I remember sitting in the cinema going, "Oh my God!" You know, we thought he was some kind of mentor, but really he's the villain. An amazing twist. But Batman Begins to me, for its action, for its emotion, for its fleshing out of Bruce Wayne's character, and you get a lot of Christian Bale's screen time out of The Mask. And one of the things which, I mean, I love The Dark Knight, but I don't love it as much as Batman Begins. And one of the things that did disappoint me about The Dark Knight, I didn't seem to feel that I saw a lot of Christian Bale. I saw a lot of Batman, which was awesome, but I think because I saw so much Christian Bale FaceTime as Bruce Wayne out of The Mask, I really enjoyed that. And I wanted more, even more fleshing out of Bruce Wayne's character. I mean, what they did with Bruce Wayne in the movie was amazing. But in a way, it's not really Bruce Wayne's movie. In a way, it's the Joker's movie. It's Harvey's movie. It really is about the narrative of those characters, if you want. And Bruce Wayne is there, and obviously, once Rachel dies, they really start focusing on him again. And of course, it's his movie, it's Bale's movie, but it never felt like Bale's movie. It never felt like Bruce Wayne's movie. It felt like other characters' movies. And I like my heroes to be front and centre. So as much as I think The Dark Knight is an amazing film and Nolan's achievement in what he did and Ledger's performance was amazing, my favourite Batman film of all time is Batman Begins for what it gave to me emotionally. It made me really feel Batman. I think that's the time when I really got Batman. So that trilogy is amazing. I think The Dark Knight Rises is a typical film coming after a very successful film. It's a very good film, and I think if it wasn't for The Dark Knight, people would have loved it even more. I think the only thing I don't like about The Dark Knight Rises is the ending, the happy ending that he wanted to give Bruce Wayne. I think it doesn't work. I think as much as I loved Selina Kyle in Batman Returns, I just couldn't get into this Selina Kyle and this version of Catwoman. He was kind of too ashamed to do a proper Catwoman, so she was a kind of thief dressed up as in leather. She was never Catwoman. She was never referred to as Catwoman, and that was disappointing. I think he squeezed her in, and I think that's the problem. I think if you want Selina Kyle in your films, in a Batman film, you must bring her in from day one and, flesh her out through those 3 movies. Then I think that character works. But you've got to make her a Catwoman. You shouldn't be embarrassed of what you're doing. Now, I know Nolan was trying to create Batman within the real world, and there's some villains he didn't want to work with or reference because maybe he thought they were campy. But I think Tim Burton proved, and even in Batman Forever, really, those guys proved that you could actually do great Batman villains, and they didn't have to be embarrassing. I mean, the Joker was amazing. I mean, obviously, Nolan saw the Joker and saw the potential of making him a real-world villain, which he did. And I think in the first one with Ra's al Ghul, he did. Liam Neeson was a great Ra's al Ghul. But I think ultimately, I like Bane. I think Tom Hardy does an excellent job. Bane is very menacing. The voice is amazing. And I could understand what he was saying because I think they really had to work hard on Bane's voice in the end. And I think how they dubbed him over in the end really worked for understanding. But there were issues with that. And I think the original plan was for the Joker and Bane to team up in The Dark Knight Rises. With Ledger dead, obviously, that couldn't happen. But I still feel he could have given Bane another foil. You could have Bane, but you could if you had someone else. And I think that's the problem with this film. As great as what Bane is doing is in this film, and what an intelligent villain is, and his backstory and everything, which Nolan gives him, it's brilliant. But it just doesn't have the gravitas of the other 2 films, and I think that really is the problem. Is it a great finale? I think in terms of a finale, it's very good. It's very emotional. But as I say, because I felt that Catwoman or Selina Kyle was just squeezed into this film, I just think he didn't do enough with her. I didn't feel her. I didn't feel it was, she just wasn't a great Selina Kyle, because you could tell that Nolan wasn't particularly interested in fleshing out this character. So I do like the Dark Knight Rises. I probably like it the least out of the trilogy, and I think most people say that. But Batman Begins for me is a very special movie, a very very special movie. Gary Oldman, as Gordon as well, very very special as well. I mean, he got some great actors in this film, and we know that Nolan is very inspired by Richard Donner's Superman the movie as well, and I think he made it in that kind of way, and nobody's ever going to forget what Christopher Nolan did with Batman, and of course he co-wrote Man of Steel with David S. Goyer, and David S. Goyer and him were very integral to the Dark Knight trilogy. So there's that. So after that, he's gone. So then Ben Affleck's announced as Batman, and of course this split the public. I must admit, when I first found out, I was like, and then I calmed down and I said, hang on, Mick, this guy is a critically acclaimed director and actor. Maybe Christopher Nolan has brought him on, and that's who brought him on. Christopher Nolan and Zack Snyder saw something, his creativity, his artistry, and thought maybe he could star and write and direct his own awesome Batman movie, which of course was the plan after Batman v Superman. Because of the reaction to Batman v Superman by mainstream critics and mainstream audiences, it became very apparent that even though Ben had already told us Deathstroke was going to be his villain in his movie, and he showed us some test footage and it was very exciting, it was very obvious that Warner Brothers just couldn't handle the pressure of the fallout to Batman v Superman, and they were making crazy decisions and they didn't know where to turn. It was difficult for everyone, and ultimately that film never happened. And now the Batman is going to be written and directed by Matt Reeves, which I'm really excited about. But let's make something really, really clear here, that Ben Affleck would have given us something amazing. And I don't think he's gone because they didn't trust him. I think he's gone for a multitude of reasons, but also he has suffered with alcoholism and stuff like that. So he's had issues himself. So obviously, in the end, it was just not plausible to carry on. And, Warner Brothers wanted a Batman film. Batman's the biggest thing on their slate. Batman films have made more money than Superman films in recent history. So he's massive. And if you get Batman right, then the box office is massive, as we saw with Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy and Dark Knight movie, which made a lot of money and broke records at the time. So I really love Ben Affleck's Batman. I think it's a great version. I think his Bruce Wayne, he grew on me, his Bruce Wayne. I did prefer his version of Batman rather than Bruce Wayne. I actually think in Justice League, and I do love his Bruce Wayne in Batman v Superman, by the way, but I think there were some interesting things in Justice League, and I don't know what we're going to see in the Snyder Cut, and I hope we do see the Snyder Cut version of Bruce Wayne. But he was a very, very good version of Bruce Wayne. Personally, I don't think he's as good as Christian Bale. I think as Batman, I don't know. Maybe I would go for Ben Affleck over Christian Bale, but the whole package of Christian Bale just works for me. Christian Bale, look, for me, Christian Bale is a more talented actor, a more rounded, varied actor than Ben Affleck. But Ben Affleck is a great writer, he's a great director, and he's a solid actor, and he did a great job as Batman, don't get me wrong. But obviously, because Batman Begins is my favourite Batman film ever, I'm going to plump for Christian Bale over Ben Affleck. So really, that's the live-action history. Now, obviously, we've had Gotham. Now, Gotham was a very interesting show because, just like Smallville, it was the story of the story. Now, I think they really did a great job with that show in aspects, but the problem is it's a bit-part show. Not everything they did was great. There were too many fillers, and I think you've got a problem when you're focusing a pre-Batman story on Gordon rather than the young Bruce Wayne. Now, obviously, the actor who played Bruce Wayne was very young at first, and I'm not sure if they could have him full-time. So he came up with a situation there. But I feel that ultimately this show, I mean, the villain, their version of the Joker is amazing. And the actor who played him was great. The villains were great. Oswald, Edward Nygma, amazing. So I think the villains were very successful up to a point. I didn't think they had a great Selina on this show. I think they were too scared about taking her to a darker place, and most of the time she was just the pure thief that runs around and falls in love with Bruce Wayne, and that's a version of Selena Kyle I just can't swallow. And also, the finale of Gotham, the series finale, was absolutely terrible for me, an absolute fail, and a big shame for me, really. But I was never that invested in Gotham. But some things they did were groundbreaking, and some things just didn't work. So here we are now. This is where we are. We've got a new Batman in Robert Pattinson. Batman on live action has an exciting new future with Matt Reeves and Pattinson. Who knows what they're going to give us, but the rumours I'm hearing about this Batman movie sound very, very exciting. Apparently it could be revolved around Arkham Asylum, which would be awesome. There's apparently most of these Batman's villains are involved in this film. There's a lot of conjecture at the moment whether the Joker will be involved, because we've got Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, so we don't know if they're going to want to give us another Joker so quickly, because Joaquin obviously isn't the Joker in the DCEU. And there's loads of question marks over the Batman movie. Is it set within the parameters of a younger version of Batfleck? Is it something brand new? Nobody knows. But one thing's for sure, we are going to find out sooner rather than later. Now, before I go, and it's been a pleasure talking about Batman on this Batman Day, because special character. And this is kind of continuing the Batman theme, because we are going to read an article about how Joaquin Phoenix walked out of an interview. Joker, Joaquin Phoenix walks out of interview over controversial question. A question about the potential real-world impact of the upcoming DC film Joker led Joaquin Phoenix to walk out of an interview during the film's press tour. The upcoming film, positioned as a character study of a mentally ill man and a story separate from the DCEU, has proven to be a polarizing one. Ahead of its October the 4th release date, Joker was recently awarded the Golden Lion at the 2019 Venice Film Festival. While Phoenix's performance as the mentally unstable Arthur Fleck has earned widespread praise and even Oscar buzz. Additionally, with its theatrical debut just 2 weeks away, the film is also tracking to be a major success at the box office. However, even amid all its early accolades and critical praise, Joker has also proven to be among the most hotly debated films of the year, with the film focusing on Arthur Fleck's gradual descent into madness and eventual transformation into Gotham City's homicidal clown prince of crime. Some have expressed concern that the film could inspire acts of violence similar to those committed by Fleck in real life. The focal point of the controversy has been with the similarity between the film's portrayal of Fleck and that of a recent mass shooters. The film's detractors have specifically taken issue with the movie's perceived sympathetic view of Fleck's actions. Well, actually, that's not true. And that the character's quest for vengeance upon society mirrors motives of mass murderers that have tragically dominated headlines in recent days. During an interview with The Telegraph, Phoenix was asked if he shared the concern that Joker might perversely and inspiring exactly the kind of people it's about, with potentially tragic results. Taken aback by the question, Phoenix walked out of the interview, though he ultimately returned after the issue was reconciled with Warner Brothers' PR department. Yeah, they probably said, Joaquin, get in there now, mate. Between the controversy surrounding the movie and the tremendous praise heaped upon Phoenix's performance in the title role, Joker is sure to be one of the most talked about movies of the year. Director Todd Phillips has explained that the film's portrayal of Arthur Fleck has its basis in real-life mental health issues. Specifically, Fleck suffers from a condition that causes him to spontaneously burst into laughter. As a result of a head injury, this ultimately adds more misery to Fleck's life in Joker, leading him further down his murderous path over the course of the film. Method acting Phoenix underwent for the role is already the stuff of legend, with the Joker's laugh in particular being an element of the character that Phoenix worked tirelessly to perfect. To say nothing of the astonishing weight loss visible in the trailers for the film, Joker is hardly the only major film to be set with controversy stemming from its perceived connection to the real-world tragedies. However, it is unlikely to prevent the film from being a success, though it has made the press tour for the movie noticeably more tense one than most major comic book films experience. Ultimately, audiences will have the chance to see for themselves what Phoenix's performance and the film's portrayal of a mentally ill person unleashing their repressed fury on the world entail. At a minimum, all of the talk regarding the appropriateness of Joker in the current political climate only serves to illustrate just how much of an impact the film has already had before the general public has even had the chance to see it. Very, very interesting, very. You can't mess around with someone like Joaquin Phoenix. You can't get him in an interview and say, you know what you just made? You know how proud of it you are? You might inspire someone to go kill people. What do you expect him to do? Sit there and go, well, maybe, but I don't think so. No, he's going to walk out. He sat back, then he thought about it, and then walked out. I think he walked out because he didn't want to unleash. He didn't want to embarrass the film. He didn't want to embarrass Warner's or New Line. You know, they put a lot of faith in him. But I think there always is that risk of him erupting. This is the kind of man he is. This is not Henry Cavill. This is not Ben Affleck. This is Joaquin fucking Phoenix. You don't mess around with this guy. And you don't absolutely question the man's morality, because this man has been through so much, not just as an actor, but as a person. This is the man who lost a brother who was one of the most famous young actors since James Dean. And he found a way to inspire himself to do this career for his brother Phoenix. And he's a very emotional man. He's suffered with issues himself, alcoholism, you know, there's lots of things. This guy's been through so much. I've really done my research on this guy. This guy's amazing. Simple as that. And you don't go around asking people those questions, because this is where we are now. Because nobody can do anything now without upsetting someone else. They don't like it because apparently this is sympathetic to a white man with mental health problems. Apparently it's making excuses. It is not. It's showing you that this guy, because of a head injury, has major issues. A head injury, right? A head injury, right? Which leads him down this road of becoming the Joker. Amazing. Amazing. This isn't sympathetic. As I read you that article in the Hollywood Reporter the other day, where they tell you the violence is so real, it affects you. It shows you the damage of violence can do. It shows you the violence of what a repressed man suffering with mental illness and being ignored by the government's health system can do. It is not sympathetic. It's showing you what's going on outside of your window. And these people getting offended with their fake outrage just so they can try and hurt this movie can't. You know, Joaquin Phoenix walking out of an interview. Now, this is the first site that's actually explained that Joaquin actually came back to complete the interview. But they're trying to make a big dramatic situation. Let me be clear, people, for you trying to hurt this film, the more you talk about the controversy, the more intrigue you're going to create. This is what happened with Captain Marvel. The more these right-wingers did videos, the more intrigue the mainstream public became. And in the end, that film made over $1 billion. This is not how you damage a film. You know how you damage a film that you want to damage? You don't talk about it. You keep the hype level down. But the problem is you people are not clever. These politically motivated critics and bloggers now really need to be moved out of this kind of situation. They shouldn't be allowed. You shouldn't be allowed with your political motivations to stir an audience one way or the other. It's happening. It's real. And it's not right. But let me tell you what is right. What Joaquin Phoenix did. He got out of there before he did or said something he regretted. And then when he was calm, he went back in to complete the interview. But is it a question needed asking? Maybe it is. As a journalist, maybe you should be asking that question. You know, are you worried that people might be inspired by this? It's a very difficult question to answer, and I'm assuming this is why Phoenix didn't answer it. You know, people on film and TV can inspire you to do great and bad things. There's no question about it. It's within our nature to want to be Batman or Superman or maybe even a villain that kills lots of people. Do they have a responsibility? I don't know. As I say, it's a very, very difficult question. All I know is I'm a DC fan. I love the test screening of the Joker film. I won't do a full review until I see the theatrical version, because I want to review the theatrical version, because what I saw wasn't finished. So basically, I'm looking forward to October the 4th, 5th, or one of those dates to go out and see the movie here in Cyprus. Hopefully I can do that, and then I can come to you and do a review. But happy Batman Day, everyone. It's been a great 40 minutes for me, just talking about Batman, talking about the Joker film, and really having the impression that you lot watching this video love Batman as much as me. I'm sure there's many of you watching this video who love Batman more than me, because predominantly I'm a Superman fan, but I love the whole DC world of characters. They're so brilliant, they're so diverse, they're so interesting, and I want so many of them to be in live action because they deserve to be, because they're so wonderful. So whatever you're doing for Batman Day, I'm about to watch Batman the Brave and the Bold. We haven't discussed the animated movies, did we? Or the animated TV shows. Most people love Batman the animated series. That's not my favourite. I love it, but Batman the Brave and the Bold, that's my favourite TV show. It's fun, it's funny, it just grabbed me always. I really love that animated TV show. And of course, there's so many Batman movies, great Batman animated movies as well. And I think The Dark Knight Returns, just like the graphic novel, is a great version. And let me just say before I sign off, what Bruce Timm has achieved with DC animation is something extremely special and something that I'll never forget. So thank you everyone for tuning in on this very special Batman Day. Whatever you're doing, whatever film you're watching, whatever Batman comic you're reading, I hope you have a wonderful day.